Former Minister of Information, Professor Gana, recently made a declaration saying former President Goodluck Jonathan will contest the 2027 presidential election under the PDP and return to Aso Rock. Gana, who is also a founding member of the PDP, insists that Nigerians were yearning for Jonathan's leadership again after experiencing life under two different administrations since he left office in 2015. But is this a real possibility, or is it just political nostalgia?
Is it political nostalgia? Now, joining us this morning to explore the political feasibility of this comeback is former Special Advisor on Youth and Student Affairs to President Jonathan, Comrade Jude Imagwe. Warm welcome to you. And thanks for joining us this morning on Breakfast Central.
Good morning, Gbenga, and thank you for having me.
Now, Comrade, your principal is yet to confirm or deny, but Professor Gana says Jonathan, former President Goodluck Jonathan, will contest in 2027. Has the former president given any indication to you or his inner circle that is ready to return? What do you make of all of this rumors about his contesting?
Yeah, it's good you also ended by saying they are all rumors. Yeah, there are rumors to the extent that which my principal himself has not clearly stated that he's contesting an election. Neither had he mentioned it to myself or any persons around. Yeah, the beauty of it is, as much as the pressure continues to mount, the pressure does not only mount on him contesting an election. The pressure now also mounts on the incumbent government to begin to take a reflection around themselves on why people should be desiring a past to the present. And if that becomes something that is interesting for them to juggle up their ways of governance, then it makes the democracy deepened. I will not pretend that there are no pressures. I've mentioned this before. I will not pretend that there are no pressures around my boss contesting an election in 2027. But that at all times I have stated is dependent on his own decision and assessment of the entire circle that wants to throw him up. It's usually, for me, not about just contesting an election. It's about winning an election. So if it is for the purpose of contesting an election, then they may push him into contesting an election. But if it is for what he has built out of office, the image he now commands and the acceptance that people have now come to the realization that, yeah, this man was pushed out of office, built to mantles of lies and several misinformation that was thrown to the Nigerian people then that was misleading, that led to the 2015 general election. And again, he has the strength, he's an academician too, to look at weigh the options, look at all the parameters, indexes around the electorals, because 2027 election is not just an election like it was before. I tell people without contradiction that 2027 election is completely going to be an entirely different electoral system, because the consciousness of the Nigerian people has been so deepened and enlightened. The preparedness of the Nigerian people to go into the ballot is so very evident from the way you see them shout and the way you see them express themselves. There are reflections and there are instances globally that suggest that what people want can now happen. These things are not things that someone or a government should just jettison. And then the third leg of it again is how prepared are political parties themselves. Because it is usually very funny for us now to just wake up and say, President Jonathan wants to contest election, President Jonathan wants to contest election, Professor Gana said, some other persons have also said, let him come and contest election. Now, what has the political parties themselves done as regard towards the electoral reforms? What stance have they taken? How have they been able to push INEC to make clarity how elections will be conducted, what we should be expecting? Are we going to be expecting real-time electoral result declaration? What the VAR and all the rest, what rules are each of these ICT components be playing in the electoral cycle? They are not discussing that. We are just discussing an election. But election is said before the election, there is a process. The process that leads to the voting is the process that leads to rigging. It is not the voting center that elections are being rigged. It is the process that builds up to when you go to vote and the process that takes off after you vote. These are instances where manipulation can take place. And if a serious political party is not concerned about how 2023 election turned into technical glitches and is still concerned about how elections will just be conducted, then there is a problem. I don't feel that we should just narrow and limit ourselves to calling my boss to contest in an election. We should also tell ourselves that to what extent have we as political parties deepened the electoral reform system that can make him come to an election and conduct an election on a free, fair and credible space. And another one is, in some days now, we'll be expecting an announcement of who is going to be the subsequent replacement for Professor Yakubu Mahmoud. No matter how people also see him as somebody that may have conducted an election that raised several controversy, I will state it for free. Professor Mahmoud raised a whole lot of reforms in the INEC system. And if political parties didn't actually deepen it, it's just to be blamed. It's not that Professor Mahmoud actually brought several innovations, several reforms into INEC. We hope that the person that will be replacing him will be somebody that will also have the character, the strength, and the personality to deepen this and to take us away from where we are presently. The challenge around it is who appoints INEC national chairman? What are the processes that surround the appointment of INEC national chairman? So it's not only about President Jonathan coming to contest election. It's about a whole lot of things, factors around the election itself.
All right, Comrade Jude Imagwe, beyond the systems and structures that exist regarding political and electoral reforms, the presidency has responded, and their argument is that former President Goodluck Jonathan has dismal records whilst in office. In a tweet, Bayo Onanuga goes on to list a number of things. He referenced Professor Jerry Gana's statement, and I'm going to read a few lines from the tweet. He says that they should caution former President Jonathan to be wary of the PDP sugar-coated leaders. And then he goes on to he says, let us remind ourselves about Jonathan's record. We cannot forget in a hurry how his regime, devoid of any clear economic agenda, engaged in frivolous spending, ran the economy aground, and put the country in dire straits. The nation's economic downturn, which President Tinubu is working very hard to overcome, actually began under President Jonathan. The Jonathan administration severely damaged the economy, and all key indicators declined under his watch. He went ahead to say, under him, the so-called business moguls allocated foreign exchange to import fuel, simply pocketing the dollars without importing anything. Some of those big men still have court cases on the issues today. He lists a number of things and then ends it by saying, in contrast, President Tinubu has taken bold decisions over the last 28 months to reset the economy, removing the ruinous fuel subsidy and abolishing multiple exchange rates, which paved the way for arbitrage to flourish. He says that the president has stabilized the economy in slightly over 2 years in office. How do you respond to this?
Believe, my dear, I would not have expected anything less than what Adenuga has mentioned. Yeah, you expect him to actually play the role to which he's been hired for. And except he's living in outer space, and also except he's not also in consonant with reality, that is when he cannot compare President Jonathan's, as then president, economic reforms and growth to what we are having today. And for him to have courageously mentioned before the Nigerian people that through his tweet that what the President Tinubu is trying to fix is ranging from President Jonathan's mismanagement. It's as unfortunate as it is. I hope he has the presence of mind to go for confession if he's a Catholic, so that his sins can be absolved. Now, if he is honest and true to himself, let us begin to range it from commodity to commodity, from sector to sector, and from national unity to where we are. The first thing in 2015, between Jonathan's administration of 2012 to 2015, I tell you clearly that Nigeria was not as divided as it is today. Nigerians had the right of expression. Nigerians had this freedom. That was why you had some of them including the incumbent president and so many others, had the liberty to stage the subsidy removal protest they had in January 1st. Now, this was an atmosphere of freedom, an atmosphere of expression. You remember also at the level of Eagle Square, the likes of Senator Dino and so many others stood on the podium. They were calling President Jonathan then as president, sitting in chair, a drunkard. They gave him all forms of derogatory. Did they arrest anybody? The answer is no. So for freedom of speech, freedom of expression, right of association, is there any basis of comparison? Tell him to explain that. Now we're coming back to things we go to market to normally buy yesterday. Are they the same with what they are today? You have 8 years of President Buhari. You have skipped to 8 years of President Buhari to go into another 4 years down the line. That makes it 12 years. Now, so if you knew you were not prepared to solve a problem, why did you take the job? A man is hired not to say because there were problems yesterday. Yes, there are problems. There are gaps. Why you put in your CV and say you want to make changes of those gaps? If you have now come to make the changes of the gap and you are shouting that these problems are too much, then leave it for some person that has the capacity to do. So I do not think that they are doing the president well by coming up to want to raise several aspersions, raise several negative things. See, if President Jonathan was in no way a threat to them, they will not be responding. And that is not what I am even discussing. When the time comes, if the president said he's going to contest, Nigerians will have the strength to weigh the comparison between the President Jonathan and the incumbent administration. Is it for foreign policies? So I do not know the yardstick, the basis. When they say people were corrupt, I do not understand what it means by corruption. Is he going to also run away from the fact that there is executive? I would say that between the last 12 years, there is what I call a prodigal administration, where a government wakes up and says one of the major problems we had is the purchase of yacht. Where is the yacht today? Have you heard at any instance where they say this yacht is being used? But at the time, it was something that was presidential jet, state house clinic, and we don't want to label ourselves with things that are not in the public airspace reality. The people and the citizens, for them to be shouting something is wrong. What I expect spokespersons of the president at this instance to be doing is, what are the reasons why people... You remember I stated clearly that it is an error for you to be seated on the chair today and somebody is telling you, Olive and Gbenga, that we want somebody that has sat here 12 years ago to come sit. They are not telling you to go. They are saying we want somebody that has sat here 12 years ago to come sit. What that should suggest to you elementarily is the fact that you are not doing right. You have also moved them back 16 years ago. That is why they are looking for a 12 years ago administration leader to come sit. So what you should do as somebody that is futuristic, somebody that is honest, and somebody that wants to actually have a connection with the citizen, is to begin to pencil down what are truly the things that are making people yearn for the past than the present. How do we juggle up to correct these mistakes? What do we do? There is no government that is a total failure. Yes, I will say as much as we are crying so much about President Tinubu, I'll give to him some of the reform policies that he has taken. But again, those policies you take, you don't take them without robust conversation, and that is where the challenges are.
Yeah,
policies are not just targeted at infringing injuries, pains and sufferings of people. You must have conversation with people. When President Jonathan suggested the removal of subsidy, there were a lot of robust conversation before he went ahead with it. And when he went ahead with it, you saw we had Shopee, we had several things that were already penciled on how the removal of subsidy was going to be spent. There was already implementation of these processes before it was removed. When it was removed, they came and they shouted, he called it back. And what was the pump price then and what is it today? So these basis of comparisons are just there to mislead the public so that people don't get to discuss what the reality of the present Nigerian state is. Yesterday, just
Comrade Imagwe,
a reporter in Arise, your sister station, was murdered Is that the same as it was before? So when we are talking about insecurity, talking about so many things, somebody should have the conscience and the presence of mind to say what people are yearning for is true. I'm not coming up to say Nigerians will not forget. Yes, truly Nigerians will not forget. Nigerians too will still hold the presence to account when they want to go to the ballot.
Now, thank you very much, Comrade Imagwe. So let's come back to reality, because what we're discussing right now is just speculations and it's hypothetical, because the man in question has not categorically come out to say, I will be contesting in 2027. Now, some might say that criticism by Mr. Onuga and the presidency of the former president is premature, because he hasn't come out to say he's contesting, but they say in politics and in war, all is fair. That brings me to my question. Former President Jonathan is somebody you've worked with closely. You understand his temperament. A few weeks ago, we saw a video where the First Lady, Dame Patience Jonathan, openly said that, can't you see how fresh I look, that I'm tired, that what are we going back there to look for? And if you recall the presidency, she was larger-than-life character. She was very vocal, and she was right there at the side of her husband. Given her temperament, and given President Jonathan's record outside the presidency, he's been a peace ambassador, he's been an electoral observer to many African countries during elections, and he seems to have taken up the role of an elder statesman, you know, and enjoying his retirement. If you could advise him on a personal note, would you advise him to contest in 2027?
Yeah, you've asked this question before, and I do not know why. Gbenga, you're always tempted to want him to put me on the spot and to know whether I will say yes or no. Now, let me be very straight with you. The statement that is being credited to Mama P, former First Lady, as was statement that was made about in last 2024. Now, for it to begin to resonate, it suggests to you that they're looking for everything to try to see how they can discredit, how they can suggest, how they can box the former president for not wanting to aspire. Now, for me as a person and as a son to the former president, is the fact that I would say it from a personal side and from a political aspect of it. From a personal side of it, I will tell the president not to contest an election for two reasons. The first is there is no political party as it stands today that suggests to me that is serious, disciplined, and have weighed all the options to contest an election as an opposition party. And so the only reason why the president can contest an election is if there is a platform like that threw up President Buhari in 2011. Now, if there are no platforms that will suggest that as at 2013, 2014, like the ACN, CPC, AC, and all of them had, that they came together and subsequently now translated into one political party that is now the APC to unseat the then PDP. If such kind of platform is not available, he doesn't have a business to be on the ballot. I said from the beginning that it is not about being on the ballot that matters. It's about winning an election when you are on the ballot. So if you go for an election just for the purpose of wanting to be an election, I've contested an election before and I know what it is to go into an election and the election result is upturned, it's not in your favor, how you begin to get demoralized and the rest. So he cannot get himself to that state again. So if there are no things that suggest that there is a serious opposition political party, I will say to him, like I will always say, please continue to live your quiet life, your peaceful life, and the manner at which you have been serving Nigerians and the global community, carrying the Nigerian image as that represents peace, unity, and the electoral processes that you are driving across the globe. Then, it is my advice for him. It is, again, he's a father. It is so desire to say, I have seen this, I'm ready to do anything I want to do, if it is to change the mind and change the hope and give Nigerians another hope. That is his decision to make. Then the second side of it is, if we want to be very honest, I want us to look at this administration and look at how things are being done and tell me in all sense of honesty. We are discussing a replacement for Professor Mahmoud. Nobody has yet just now told us the processes that will lead to the election or the emergence of a new INEC chairman. Now, I do not see, except it was President Jonathan that accommodated that and allowed that to happen. I also do not also see what suggests that any other person could be like President Jonathan, that we appoint an INEC chairman that will pretend over an election and declare him a loser. Because here people say that it's just an INEC chairman and there are other resident electoral officers and the rest. There were other resident electoral officers that brought results that technical glitches explained. So it is a man that finally announces a result that says you can go to court or you want to go home and rest. So are all these things evidence? Do we think that these things are visible going to 2027? If there are no evidence, if there are no visible, if there is nothing that suggests that these things can come to be, as much as people continue to shout, it does not translate to reality. I was telling a friend yesterday, the worst situation we can find ourselves is that which we have found ourselves is when you are looking for something and the person that is assisting you to look for that thing are the holders of that thing that you are looking for. You can never find it. Because you will be looking for it and the person will be leading you to where they know you can never find it, while they are in possession of it. So the only way we can get out of all this brouhaha is to say, President Jonathan, the duty is yours, the choice is yours. If you weigh all the options, you look at the environment and you say, these things are clear. If you say you are throwing yourself on the ballot, I do not have any choice. I will support him. He's my principal. I will give all my best. I will do all I can do to talk to the Nigerian people. But again, I cannot make that decision for him. It is his duty to make that decision for himself.
Comrade Jude Imagwe, he hasn't said anything to it yet. Many will assume that the fact that he's been silent about it and hasn't come out to clearly say, I'm not running, these are all rumors, means that there may be a hint of truth to it. So dust your CV up, you might be back to work shortly. Thank you very much, Comrade Jude Imagwe, for joining us this morning.
Thank you,
Central.
Thank you, Gbenga.
We'll see you shortly.
Yeah, let's hope that he says something and we'll tell whatever he says at the end of the day. He may also be studying the Nigerian political space to know how things are going to be done. This was not how he left it years ago. And if he finds that there is nothing that suggests that he's going to have a free, fair, and credible platform, I do not think that he should be on it. But if he finds out that he has the capacity to bear whatever comes out of it as consequences just for the purpose of deepening Nigerian democracy, then he goes in. When he goes in, we'll come in with him.
All right.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Comrade Imagwe, for joining us this morning. Have a wonderful rest of the day.
And you too, have a wonderful day.
Yeah,
enjoy the rest of your day, please.
Thank you.